From Flourish DX, this is the Psych Health and Safety Podcast. With workplace mental health becoming a safety prerogative, this is the source of information on psychological injury prevention and health promotion.
Hi, and welcome to the Psych Health and Safety Podcast. My name is Jason and I'm one of the hosts of the show. The aim of the podcast is to rapidly increase the knowledge and application of psychological health and safety in workplaces worldwide. To help with this, we have regular guests from around the world who are leading the way in this important area. But before I introduce our guest and topic for today, allow me to introduce my co-host, Joelle Mitchell. How are you today, Joelle?
I'm okay, Jason. Second recording of the day.
Yep, and second recording since PHSCON. This time, though, you are working from home.
I'm working from home now. I was working from work earlier.
Isn't it great how we got that flexibility within the one day doing the same job, doing it in two different locations?
It is magnificent. It saves me a lot on after-school care charges.
Yeah. So that means I can pay you less?
No.
Oh, okay, just checking. That would be handy.
Not for me.
Yeah, well, that's right. We were talking about in our last podcast, which is probably going to be out of sync with this one because I think we're going to fast track this one.
Yeah, no, this one will come out next week and then the other one won't be for another month or so.
Yeah, we talked a little bit about the difference between value for shareholders and value for employees. They don't have to be mutually exclusive, so...
They don't have to be, no.
No. So, but the listeners will understand that when they listen to Megan, maybe in a month or so, once that episode comes out.
Yep.
Yep, it was a good one, though.
It was, yeah. Yep, it'll be an interesting one to look out for.
Cool. Anything else happened in the last couple of hours since I last saw you?
I put some bolognese in the oven to cook.
Cool. Nice. I'll be going home soon to cook some pasta for the beef stroganoff I'm having dinner tonight. Anyhow, this is not a cooking show, and our guest today is a very busy person, and she's been nice enough to stay on late today to get this recording in. And
she's already spent a good deal of time listening to our nonsense in recent weeks as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Way too much, one could argue. So let's introduce her in. She is a passionate and accomplished organisational psychologist who has helped many organisations achieve their strategic goals by improving the culture, performance and wellbeing of their employees, both in Australia and in the UK. She is the current chair for the New South Wales APS, College of Organisational Psychologists, and it turns out she's an amazing conference chair too, based on her second appearance at PHSCON last month. A very warm welcome back to the podcast, Liz Payne.
Oh, hey, you too. It feels like an eternity. So nice to see you again.
Yeah, it hasn't even been 2 weeks, right, since the conference. So we'll be getting some fresh takes from you today, which we're really looking forward to.
I will try my best, but most importantly, Joelle, I've got my bolognese prepared for my kids. So, the secret to life is just get the bolognese cooking.
Just get it in the oven, yep.
Get the bolognese going. So, hopefully I won't be disturbed for another hour or so.
It's a nice, easy one, isn't it, bolognese? We really do appreciate this, Liz. Obviously, you put a lot of effort into chairing the conference, so we're really happy that you put in an extra hour's effort to come on the podcast and kind of share with us and the broader listenership who couldn't make it your thoughts.
Oh. Well, otherwise I'd be making more bolognese or something, Jason.
Yeah, or having a glass of wine. I mean, you could have a glass of wine while we do this. It's up to you.
I don't know. Then, yeah, you see, I don't know. Nah.
All right, Liz. So our standard opening question, favourite podcasts or any new ones that you've started listening to recently?
So I thought about this, obviously, because obviously I've been immersing my world in Adam Grant, so that's needless to say. And then there's a few things. So I was chatting to Rob Briner and Jess Dalton at the dinner table on when Merrick was on in the evening, and we all jointly agreed that it's better to read than to listen for memory absorption and making notes and getting things to memory. So we actually did have a conversation about that. You can imagine how the two of them just bounced off each other. But aside from that, I've been listening to the Mushroom Case Daily. I don't know if you've been onto that one. No, Joelle, come on.
No, all that I've seen from that is headlines.
Well, that's probably a podcast, you know. So for your listeners, Jason, who don't listen to the podcast, so this is like one of the trials of the decade, isn't it? You know, did Erin Patterson purposely poison the beef Wellington that killed her dinner guests? So the jury's out currently. They've got a few things to consider. What happens when, so here's a thought, what happens when you go round to someone's house who doesn't really like you and they serve your dinner on a different colour plate than what she's eating? Like, is that a warning sign?
It is now. People are going to have to come up with a different strategy.
What else did she do? If she gets rid of her food dehydrator, like just afterwards, is that suspect? I don't know. Or circumstantial? I don't know.
Hey, it makes for a really compelling case. If it was all cut and dry, we wouldn't be having this conversation.
Look, we're going to be watching the movie like sometime soon, so I don't know if he'll be cast.
Is it up there with Liz Chamberlain? You know, the dingo stole my baby.
Yeah, see, that's before my time in Australia. I'm still on the Chappelle Corby kind of.
Lindy Chamberlain, Jason.
Oh, Lindy, what did I say?
You said Liz. Yeah, we're talking to Liz. I don't know.
Lindy Chamberlain. Anyway, yes.
Yeah, right. I know of that one, but yes. Look, that's the latest.
Hopefully this one won't involve such a miscarriage of justice as the Chamberlain case did.
Well, there's about 3 people dead, so we'll see. We'll see. Yeah.
So we'll have to have a listen to it while it's still topical, Joelle.
Sure.
I think Joelle's like, just don't put any mushrooms in your bolognese, hey, Joelle?
I like to listen to things that make me laugh when I'm not at work. I don't like to listen to things that bum me out. So, yeah.
Yeah, no, fair enough.
So, Liz, we recorded with you about a year ago after our last conference. What have you been doing in that 12 months?
What, for the last 12 months? Oh, geez. God, that's a big question, isn't it? Heaps. It feels like an eternity ago. So I was working in health from a professional point of view. I got made redundant. So that was an experience. The psychologist in you kind of goes, well, it's good to go through these processes to kind of empathise with people and understand what it's like. The person inside of you goes, well, that was a bit shitty. So that was tough. But since then, I've been working for Psych, which I think quite a few of your listeners might know. They're a really good not-for-profit that does digital support for people with complex mental health issues. Very reputable organisation, do some fabulous work. So I've been on contract with them, helping with all of the leadership and cultural underpinnings, including looking at how they manage psychosocial safety in what is a very challenging environment, because obviously people are dealing with trauma every day. So I've been helping with that, and I'm due to finish up soon, which is good. And then other than that, my doggies passed away, Joelle. That was tough.
Oh, no.
I know. 2 old dogs, took them to England and back. They were both 16, 17 and they passed away, but I got a new dog now, so not a replacement. But yeah. Kids are good.
2 people in my team have recently had dogs pass away as well.
It's very tough. It's like really, really, really tough, actually, you know, so empathise with anyone going through that.
Well, let's move on from sad losses and on to big wins. So Psych Health and Safety Conference, if you've been following on LinkedIn, obviously people have been spreading the word all over about, you know, their experiences, and largely it looks like it was all positive, which is great. But I guess on this podcast episode, similar to last year, Liz, we wanted to recap, you know, some of the highlights from your perspective as conference chair. And you probably saw more of it. Well, you definitely saw a lot more of it than what I did, because I was running around, pulled from pillar to post for 2 days. So I probably saw about 10 minutes of every session. But you're obviously there taking notes for the full one. So we do want to take some of the key insights that you identified. But I wanted to start with, so I'm not sure if you noticed, but when you're on the side of stage at the ICC, you can't really hear very well what people are saying in front, so the audio doesn't get back. And you did this whole bit at the beginning of the conference that involved a fruit bowl and Peter Kelly. So can you tell us what that was all about?
So did you not know what the fruit bowl was all about? You just kind of randomly got pulled onto stage and given a fruit bowl.
Yeah, well, I kind of could guess, right? Because, you know, it is a running joke, yeah. Yeah.
Well, look, last time, it's one of those things. So when you're a chair, you kind of think, okay, well, look, I've got 10 minutes to kind of get people's interest or send them to sleep. So last time I told what I thought was a compelling story about a pretty tough experience I'd experienced, not personally, but through someone. And I was kind of thinking, well, what do I do to capture attention and just kind of lighten things up? I wanted to do this time. And break the ice. It's kind of breaking the ice, isn't it? So the thought that I got Peter Kelly in on the joke, obviously. He's always going for, you know, getting on stage and, you know, sharing the limelight.
That shrinking violet.
So he was keen. He was as colourful as I was. So I've probably got the notes here, but I was basically, you know, you prepared me the speech for the intro, and I kind of go, yeah, that's interesting, but, you know, I don't want to bore people.
Then why did you ask me to prepare a speech for you?
Well, because it's like
you're going to just throw it away.
Something to cross out, isn't it?
You were just a giant disappointment, Jason. That's what I'm getting from that.
Well, I'm going to pass on your feedback to ChatGPT.
No. No, it's the content. So you give me the content, which is good, and I ask you to do that, so that's helpful. Then I have to kind of make it into something that people might listen to. You know, that you kind of roll this chair.
I don't know which way you're intending to dig, Liz, but I don't think it's out at this stage.
So anyway, I talked about the themes for the conference, and I was conscious that, you know, for a while I was talking about all the difficult challenges that people were facing around the world, which is really true, and the importance of psychosocial safety and managing risk. And I thought, well, how do I kind of like bring a bit of lightheartedness? So I engaged the audience and I said, okay, so what's the one thing missing? What has Jason and the team not thought about? And then I did go to the shop the day before and bought all this nice fruit content, and that's where the fruit basket was given to you. And I don't know where the fruit went.
Well, I had a banana for breakfast the next day, so thank you for that, Liz.
Yeah, and I gave it to Jimmy Reese in his dressing room, making it look like we'd actually thought about him beforehand, but it was just a prop.
Well, see, Jason, now Jimmy's going to listen to this podcast and feel very sad about that.
Yeah, Jimmy's a keen listener of the podcast. He's going to be he's going to...
So he'd probably give it to his kids, you know. He might have gone, oh...
No, we put it back in the green room afterwards because, I was just there to make him feel like someone had thought about him. Yeah.
Oh, well, that's probably a highlight. There you go. But anyway, so that was the thinking behind the fruit basket, was just a kind of, you know, what is the one thing that everybody needs? Fruit basket, and there you go.
Yeah. Now, we didn't move too far away from the format from last year's conference for this year's conference, you know, live podcast recordings, more conversations than PowerPoints, and then the case studies. So what did you think of the overall format of this year? Yeah,
look, so real credit, I think you've really nailed that in terms of there's so much, like, it must be so much thinking to think, like the podcast I think is fabulous because like you two do it continuously, but it's ever so natural, and watching how you do that, I think that's fabulous. Obviously Rob Briner, getting him, Adam Grant, you know, two major keynote speakers for that. What I was thinking about earlier was the combination, how you pair up your speakers. You know, there's you get the people who, there must be your thought into this in terms of they know each other largely, or even if they don't know each other, they've got that chemistry going on, and you can really see the connection, and that's where you get those real depth of insights and people kind of just relax into the conversation rather than it's a formal interview. So I think that's fantastic. What else? The case studies. I think for the participants, I think they're a real highlight for a lot of people, because one of the things that you do want to come in when you're, you know, paying your money to join is like you want some takeaways. How do I practically apply this? And I think Rob Briner was saying, everyone wants to know what other people are doing. I'm not sure if that was Rob Briner or Adam, but but everyone wants to know what other people are doing. It's that sense of security, and if they're doing it, then it must be good. So I think those case studies are really just illuminating. I like for me, the one, we'll probably get to it, but the Air New Zealand, like integrating it into the way that you work, that was really practical and tangible, because I think until I heard that, it was like, okay, well, what does it actually look like? And then obviously you had the addition of humour this time, which personally I enjoyed.
Yeah, it's good. We'll get to that later. But yeah, that was a recommendation from Mary Ann Baynton. And when the godmother of psych health and safety recommends something, you take her advice. So yeah, it was good fun. But we'll get to that later.
Yeah, great. No, I really like it. And I should say on top of that, so the whole I think you might get to this soon as well, but the community that you're able to create is just something that is quite unique and something I haven't seen in other conferences.
Yeah, so that was something that a lot of people do comment on and did kind of last year and again this year, is that sense of community at the event. So what are your, what sense of community did you get?
Yeah. It's one of those things, like, it's a real learning place, isn't it? You talk about learning organisations, but it moves beyond an organisation. There's not that competitiveness, I don't feel. You go to a lot of conferences, it is like, what are you doing? But it's from a comparison point of view, it's more, we're all on the same journey or coming from different ways. What are you doing? Let's learn together. And I think there's just a real psychological safety about all of it. And I think for some people, particularly those people who are going it largely alone in their organisation, that sense of belonging. Who was it who said, maybe Joe Grasso or something, said, I feel like I found my community, I found my people, come to the other side of the world, and it's like finally you find people who are actually doing the same thing as what he's doing independently. And I think that's pretty special, actually.
Yeah, that was Joe. He does feel a bit isolated in the US, really trying to beat the drum for psychosocial safety when there's so many people in Australia doing it. So
yeah. What did I hear? Must have been David Daniels was talking about the amount of wellbeing providers. He put a post on LinkedIn following this. It seemed to be how much further ahead it is in Australia than the States, and that'd be a tough thing to do, wouldn't it?
So the other thing that lots of people have commented on, Liz, is your authenticity, and that absolutely contributed to the good vibes at the conference, and I think also that sense of community. So you're a big part of building that sense of community at the conference. So where does that authenticity come from?
Do you know my first reaction was, I get a bit blushing, but I was going to say it's from up north. It's from Wigan. So it probably is. So look, I've presented and facilitated for 20 years, but I think what you learn, whether you're a consultant or anything, you are at your best when you are who you are. And I obviously get nervous for the intro because that's a bit where I always prepare. Jason's always conscious that I'm preparing for that bit. But then as soon as you settle into, look, this is me, I like to have a laugh, I take things seriously. I am from the north of England and it brings that kind of sense of humour along with it. So I guess it is just authenticity. And I think that's when you're at your best, when you are who you are. And when I was a consultant back in the day for one of these big companies, you're looking and you're trying to model yourself on all these very straight, professional looking consultants. And then I kind of went, that really isn't me. I try and tame my accent or whatever, or use my knives and forks in the right way. I do that, don't worry. I'm only joking on that one. I'm only joking on that one. But,
don't joke about that. My wife pulls me up on that all the time. I use the wrong hands, but I don't care. I'm authentically me. That's how I do it.
Well, it's how you use a soup spoon, isn't it? Do you know when I first came to Sydney, and this is, so I did grow up in the north of England, as you know, when I was 23. and you don't really go and use Chinese and chopstick. You have Chinese, but you don't really use chopsticks. And my team took me out for Chinese with chopsticks, and they gave me a fried egg. Like, I am sure they did that on purpose. Like, that's just mean, isn't it? You know, that's just, but anyway. So no, authenticity. I think and I did say in my post, which you commented on, Joelle, it's kind of reciprocal, isn't it? So if I'm myself, it gives people a license to be themselves and just to relax into it, and then I get that back from them. So it's okay. It's perpetuating. So yeah, I just try and enjoy myself, really. And look, you can enjoy yourself immensely because you're with you two. You know, you've got your whole Flourish DX team, which I really, really love. They're a great team. And then all these fabulous presenters. So it's like, even if I say something stupid, you know, I'm not really the main event. You've got Mary Ann Baynton coming on. You've got Adam Grant, you know, it's pretty easy.
Yeah, there's a lot of distractions, right? Like, people aren't signing up for the conference to hear from Liz, although maybe they will in future years. I don't know.
The godmother of vibes. I'm going to put that on my LinkedIn profile.
I believe Serenia gave you that from Fire Rescue Victoria, that moniker. I think that's a good one. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, she came over and said that to me. She's like, and look, honestly, I did get a lot of really, really nice positive feedback, and look, it's nice. It's really nice. I'm very grateful. I'm very grateful for everyone who came and said hello to me and said thank you. So thank you.
Now, and I should let the listeners know, I've already told you, Liz, you can have a break next year. We'll find another chair. We've got someone who's put their hand up, and you can just come as a VIP now. You get to come to all of our conferences and dinners, and so you get to come and just enjoy it next year rather than having to chair.
Well, look, I will take that offer immensely. Thank you, Jason. So I will definitely be there. And I believe it's in August, is it, next time?
September 8th and 9th. I can let everyone know. But we'll do a formal save the date later. But if you're a listener of the podcast, you have just heard a hot take. This is the first time anyone's hearing it, 8th and 9th of September. I think Joelle might be the first or second time she's heard it.
Yeah, I think it's a hot tip, not a hot take.
It's both.
A hot take is like a strong, unpopular opinion.
Liz, speaking of people who, people want to listen to, Adam Grant. Unfortunately, we couldn't get him on in person, but we did manage to get a live podcast recording with the man. We've been trying for 4 years on this podcast to get him on. He confirmed when we were talking to him that it wasn't because he was listening to the podcast and heard we wanted to speak to him that he came on the podcast. We just had to pay a lot of money. But did you feel the conversation lived up to expectations?
I did. I want to ask you a question, but look, for me, it's one of those things that, like, he's God, my brain went somewhere else and I've lost my train of thought. But yes, I did. He is like, I wonder, can I ask you the question actually? Because you spent 4 years trying to, like, I know I shouldn't do that, but you spent 4 years trying to get the guy, paid him a heap load of money. Like, were you happy?
I can tell you the whole conference has gone by in such a blur. I'm going to have to re-listen to it and find out actually what was said. I feel it was, yeah. And I did see from some people's LinkedIn posts, like Amanda Clements, for example, that she had high expectations going in and they were exceeded. I did find that he rehashed a lot of the stuff that he's written about before and just kind of like reframed it to fit the questions that we were asking. So I don't think he shared anything really insightful or new, but just his way of being able to articulate things and pull from research so freely to provide that evidence base behind his recommendations, I think is amazing. His IQ must be 150 plus. The guy is so intelligent.
Yeah, that was what struck me, like in particular the audience questions, right? Because they hadn't been sent to him in advance to do any preparation. So yeah, his capacity to just recall research and who the researchers were and, like, you know, here's kind of everything that you need to know broken down into 5 points. You know, that's phenomenal. And I think being able to communicate science to a non-scientific population in a way that makes sense and is understandable is a really, really rare talent. So I think, you know, from that perspective, yeah, I guess as Jason said, while the information that he was drawing from isn't new or groundbreaking. I think that the way that he's able to communicate that is a very rare skill.
Yeah, I agree. I think he is like, what we saw with him was like someone who's like at the absolute highest level, like a master of his game. And it's like you say, his IQ and what's in his head, like everything you heard, it was kind of like, yeah, I know that. But his ability to respond in the moment with that huge context and just like contextualize and make it sound simple as well. I think that's what I really like about him. You know, I do listen to his podcast, and he talks about everyday things, and it helps you think about it. Again, obviously that's the title of his podcast, but it's all substantiated, and you just go, oh yeah, that's like, for me, that is the epitome of an organisational psychologist. And I wasn't disappointed in the slightest. I was just keen to see what Jason said, but no, I think, and he covered such a broad range of things. Like I was trying to, I think that was the thing for me. I was trying to, like, where's the flow of the conversation? It kind of covered so many different things. What did we talk about? Burnout. We talked about middle managers. We talked about organisers. There were so many different things. It'd be good to listen to it again. But yeah, what a brain, and like what a pioneer. Like, not pioneer, but like, what a like best in class for the profession. Hey.
Yeah, I mean, he's the most famous organisational psychologist, surely, in the world. And, yeah, he really has such a great understanding of the literature, and that, like Joelle said, the ability to translate to a non-professional audience. Any particular gems stand out from you or in your notes that you took down?
I'm just looking. Oh, the thing that so there was a few things that didn't just stand out for me. So he was talking about, he did cover off, but he was talking about people should be a steward for the future, forgive my accent, rather than holding on to the past. And that came through in the next conversation with Kanae and Dr. I. David Daniels. So I really like that. He talked about how the more senior you get, it is easier to dehumanise employees, like the bigger span of control. I think that was a good reminder of people for the need to executive to connect with people as people. And he gave a few good studies on that, didn't he? He talked about like some CEO, if they have a daughter, the more likely, I can't remember what the outcome was, but you're basically a more human CEO if you have a daughter. I can't remember what the actual outcome was on that, but there was some Danish study maybe. And if you start your career in a recession, you're less likely to be a narcissist. Like all these gems, like, so it's just like that humility. What else did he talk about? He talked about burnout a lot, and he talked about that middle manager status conformity as well. So like, and I've, been that middle manager, and it's a tough place to be. So you get like the creativity and the strategic thinking at the top. Then the people who are lower down, they get to practice and job craft if they're lucky, and how do we do this? Whereas a middle manager, you're kind of in the middle. It's like, we just need to get the job done. So, and then it went on to the toxic, the triad as well. I'm sure you know that one.
Yeah, we've done a whole podcast on that one before. So yeah. He didn't talk about humble narcissists, which is something that he's written about before, which I was interested in.
Why were you interested in that, Jason?
I just think it's a really interesting concept, and I haven't heard anyone else talk about it before, Joelle.
Sure. Okay. So let's talk about Rob Briner, obviously the other live podcast recording that we did. What were the standouts from that conversation for you, Liz?
I really like Rob. I was quite surprised, like I'll say this, I was quite surprised I did from some of his LinkedIn posts. I kind of thought, I don't know if I'm going to bite, he's the first person coming up, and on a couple of his LinkedIn posts, I can't remember what he was talking about, maybe mental health first aid, and I've rolled that out myself. And he gets a bite, doesn't he? You know he's doing it to get the bite, and you kind of go, damn, like you have to do that deep breath before you respond. So I was a bit kind of self-aware with him being the first speaker. I'll begin for your reflections on this. I was like, am I going to get like the amygdala hijack thing going on, and just like, but I actually really liked him. I don't know whether he was who he normally is or whether he was well behaved, but I thought he challenged, but not in a way that I struggle with. He really did challenge, and he pushed us all, and I think that's the good thing that he does. But I didn't. I saw it in a positive, constructive way rather than any other way. How did you two feel?
Yeah, look, I really enjoyed the conversation with him. You know, I think it's very easy to. I think that what he did really well was use humour through that whole conversation, and I think that counterbalances some of the hard truths, which is, you know, more difficult to do in a written post, and in particular, you know, his posts are written to be informative, probably. But yeah, I think that messaging was still there around, you know, that we do actually need to be focused on doing the things that the evidence suggests will work, and thinking about what does the evidence tell us before we make a decision about progressing something. And I think that, yeah, that message came through loud and clear, and, you know, very convincingly as well.
Yeah, I think the one thing that everyone in the delegates really picked up on was how this like bias to action and the rolling out of things, you know, and you know, that's so like, what have you done? What have you done? It's such a common thing that we all experience. So he brought that, kept coming up again, didn't it? Like, that was one of those themes of the conference. You know, someone makes a joke, it kind of catches. So I really like that. But he pushed us. But that's what, you know, we're doing really important work. So it's important that people push us and, you know, say this is this. What else? So he talked about the bias to action. He talked about. That's what he made a really, really strong point, and that was on some of the delegates' questions. But he was talking about, now I'll try and get this the right way. He'll probably write in if I say it the wrong way. Just because there is an evidence behind a practice doesn't mean that it'll work in your situation. So he was talking about using an evidence-based practice process. Now, evidence-based practice approach. Now he'll articulate that a lot better than what I did, but it's about not just, I think the question from the delegates was, what practices are evidence-based? Do you remember that question? You can help me out because I'm turning into a tongue twister.
Do you need more psych health and safety in your life? Then head over to the FlourishDX Academy for several free on-demand e-learning courses. If you're an internal professional, follow FlourishDX on Eventbrite to register for any of our free fortnightly interactive webinars. Our flagship professional practice program is also exclusively available for internal professionals. The 12-week course blends theory, applied practice, and interaction with other professionals through live lectures and a monthly community of practice session. Find out more about all these learning opportunities or inquire about a bespoke in-house training at the FlourishDX Academy. www.45003.org. Now back to this episode. And I think this comes from confusion between two ideas, and that's evidence-based interventions and evidence-based practice. So evidence-based interventions are what you select that have an existing base of evidence suggesting that this will work, right? Evidence-based practice is a process whereby you're kind of doing a diagnosis, you're intervening, and then you're assessing to make sure the intervention worked, right? So at the intervening point, you're supposed to draw on evidence-based interventions to bring that in, right? So I think, yeah, people get confused and they're like, oh, we're doing evidence-based work because we're choosing interventions, we're rolling stuff out, right, that have an evidence base. But did you really understand the problem you're trying to solve with the intervention? And do you know in your context if it actually worked once you deployed it?
Yeah, thank you. That's exactly it. Thank you, Jason.
Yeah, and I think, look, Rob, and one of the reasons we got him right is he's got a good LinkedIn followership. He is quite inflammatory on LinkedIn. He does use that to create good insights. He's quite articulate. I think Joelle and I kept it on his best behaviour though, so he wasn't as inflammatory in real life as what he was as a keyboard warrior.
Well, I liked it, and I really did like it. And what I did like as well, and he talked about the definition. So make sure you understand the definition of what you're trying to change. So well-being, he uses that example. So like, what does well-being actually mean in your organisation? Because it can mean, I think you were saying like there's however many different. And I had the pleasure of sitting next to him at dinner, as I said earlier, and look, we had a really good time. So yeah, I'm a fan. I probably still get wound up when he says something on LinkedIn, but
At least now that you know him well, you can go back and correct him if you want. Set him straight.
But then, he's too knowledgeable, isn't he? It's like, you're going to
That's right. We're all learning. I do like, he talked a big game, I think, before the conference around, and he cited himself from a published paper that he did in I think it was 2000, around how psychosocial risk assessments don't really work. And I'm like, Rob, that was 25 years ago. Do you think we've learned anything in that time? So, yeah.
Did he say, yeah?
Well, once I explained it to him a bit, I think he stepped down off his high pedestal. I'm like, dude, you got published 25 years ago on that. I mean, it's time to update that article, don't you think?
Well, he wasn't such a big fan of your comedian focus.
No, I did hear that, but they were for us, not for him. So.
Do you know the funny thing was, because I must have said about 3 times that I sat next to him at dinner, but I thought Merrick must have some really good information for his next show, like running a session in front of a group of psychologists and a professor of psychology like Rob Briner sat in the front seat. Like, I don't know what his face looked like. He was looking in the other direction, but I was just thinking, Merrick's just taking this as comedy gold for his next show.
Yeah, no, he did a good job. We'll get to that a little bit later on. But I guess if we get into the main conversation, so they were kind of well split, and by design. The first day was very much around communicating with leaders on psychosocial safety. The second day was more around inclusivity in diverse workplaces, right? Do you have any? So we had Mary Ann Baynton, obviously godmother of Psych Health and Safety, one of the co-founders of the National Standard of Canada, and really communicating the value of psychological health and safety in a market where they don't have the same level of regulations as what we have in Australia. And then we also had Chris Jones from Fonterra and Wade Needham, who works for a private equity company, who are both talking about communicating with the board on psychological health and safety. So both of them very much focused around leadership, though, and like how do you communicate with leaders on this topic? Were there any kind of nuggets that stood out from you?
Yes, and I want to add that Millie Thompson was just as fabulous. I know she was in the role of interview with Mary Ann Baynton, but she was so impressive as well, so I really appreciated that.
And thanks for the call out. Yeah, I cannot forget Millie. She is
You did?
Yeah, I didn't. I just hadn't gotten to her yet. She is very sharp, but she, like you said, everyone is there in a humble capacity, knowing there's still lots to learn and learning together. And Millie is someone who's just like a sponge and soaks up everything. So we originally had Kat Page down to interview Mary Ann, but when Kat pulled out, I knew that Millie was going to be there already because she was going to be coming across with Chris Jones, who they're getting married soon. So I hear. So I was like, hey, I know you would love this opportunity. And she did. She lapped it up and did a great job. You're right.
There you go. That's a bit of news I didn't know. That's exciting for him, isn't it?
It's an incestuous community, this psych health and safety community, Liz. So.
And the thing that she did say, she said, Chris is coming on next. And I had Liz Broderick on my notes and I was like messaging you, Jason, why's Chris on next? Like, this is the behind the scenes stuff I have to deal with, Joelle.
It's chaos, Liz.
It's like if she hadn't mentioned Chris, I was like going to introduce Liz Broderick.
We do just-in-time delivery. You didn't need to know it until the next session, Liz. So,
so what did that look? Mary Ann Baynton, she is... I don't even know if I've got the words to say. Like, she is one of my favourite people. Like, Joelle, you did the masterclass with her, didn't you, the other day? And you probably spent heaps more time with her than me. But she is at that level as well, isn't she? And I particularly like her because... I think probably because of the person who she is. I think she talks about psychosocial risk and psych health and safety but not necessarily in that language. And I really like how she normalises it, for want of a better term, without trying to make it a barrier for everyone to do. And I think sometimes when people hear the language, it's kind of, oh, I don't know what to do, I don't know, like, that's beyond me. And I think she creates you are doing it, you can do it. Obviously, we all need to learn. So she's pretty tough and shrewd as well. Like, I like how she is forthright. It's not that she's a walkover, but she's a very inclusive in her way. And the insights, not just on the session from the how to deal with senior leaders, were just exceptional. You know, it kind of takes to that next level of understanding. Joelle, you're a massive fan as well, aren't you?
Yeah, I mean, you know, I've known Mary Ann virtually since I started working with Jason, but yeah, this was the first time I've actually, seen her outside of a screen, which was very exciting. But yeah, I think just, you know, she's been doing this work for so long, you know, and she was one of the, you know, that's why she's the godmother, right? She's the OG sort of trailblazer in doing this work. And so, you know, what we've learned in the time that we've been doing this is that, you know, you do develop through repetition and through doing the work with so many different companies. You really get that sense of what works and what doesn't, and what's unique and what's common, and that kind of thing. And so, you know, the depth of insight that she is able to bring to this work just through so many reps that she's done over the decades, she's a phenomenal person, as well as a phenomenal resource to the field.
She is. And I like how she kind of, you can tell, like, she picked up on Rob Briner's comment about positive psychology, and she was like, she'd have a really robust conversation. She did it again, you know, in the final panel conversation. I don't know if you're going to get to that, but she did it the same again. There was something I can't recall off the top of my head, but she's strong-minded and strong-willed, as well as being this incredible, beautiful person as well.
The most kind, humble person. Yeah, amazing. I got to spend a week with her the week before on the road show, where we did Perth, Melbourne and Auckland, and we had a lot of downtime and a lot of meals. And yeah, and she, even though she's been doing it for so long, she's such a nerd for this stuff too, and still learning. She actually went to Joelle's masterclass herself, you know, to see, you know, how Joelle and Andrew, you know, spoke about it and some of the insights that they could get. Yeah. Yeah, I had to let Andrew know. I asked Joelle, actually, I'm like, should I let Andrew know that the godmother of Psych, Health and Safety is going to be sitting in on his masterclass that he's delivering? And she's like, yeah, probably. Give him a heads up.
Because, I mean, he would see her there, you know, so it's better that he's prepared in advance.
Yeah. So, but yeah, she's still always learning, right? And that just tells everyone, like, you should be humble and you should realize there's still lots to learn in this space. So
I agree. And on that, so you mentioned Chris Jones and Wade Needham. Their conversation just took the understanding to that next level. Like, they're actually questioning like way beyond so they were talking about moving beyond numbers for safety. Now, most people are scrambling around to get some numbers, but they're going, actually, what is the right measure? What is the narrative that we should be saying? So they're questioning at a deeper level, or a more advanced level than even where most of us are. So they're kind of reshaping the environment, was my takeaway from that conversation. I thought they're actually really pushing it to the boundaries. And I enjoyed their conversation. It was the same, was it Todd who couldn't join as well? It was the same shame not to
Todd
get
Hopwood, yeah.
Yeah, it was a shame you couldn't join, but I really thought they are pushing it to that next level, and obviously operating with the boards, governance, to make real change happen. So that was there was a lot of positive feedback, and obviously Wade's passion. You know, he's really, like, you can see he lives and breathes it. Really, really pop.
The quote that was very quotable on LinkedIn from Wade's one was "Real boats rock," and he confessed with me that wasn't a unique Wade Needham quote. That was from June, book 6, I believe, of the series. So we thought Joelle might like it, knowing that she likes fantasy fiction, but she hasn't gotten into the June series.
No, I haven't. I haven't read that one. There's lots of books out there, Jason. I'm doing my best to get through them all.
Yeah, one book at a time. Yeah, no, he's really insightful. And I can't believe that Chris and Wade have never been on a panel together, because I just find that they are such peers. I find like they are such intellectuals. They really know how to speak at both that board and senior leader level, and then distill it down to operational as well. It's that was a very deliberate pairing, Liz, and yeah, really happy with how that conversation was received.
Yeah, that worked really well, and I think that's what we're talking about at the front of the session was that chemistry between the pairings that you get. That was a real standout. Like, I look forward to watching that one again, because it was that next level of thinking. So appreciated listening to that.
All right. Well, let's move on to day 2. So the theme for those conversations was around inclusivity for diverse workforces, and obviously we had David Daniels being interviewed by Kanae Dias, and then that
was more of a fireside chat rather than an interview. Yeah,
it was more of a chat, and then similar vibes with Liz Broderick and
Dr. Anna Cody.
Anna Cody, that was it. Yes, forgive me. So what were your thoughts? Yes, please forgive me, Anna. Thoughts on those conversations, Liz? She's just, smoke coming out of her ears right now. She's like, the audacity. Who does she think she is?
Well, look, day 2 really started with a bang, didn't it? Like, it was like, wow, it was like, so we had Adam Grant, then it's like, I don't know if we had a cup of tea in between. I think we did have a cup of tea, because I think we just needed a cup of tea. And then we had, I don't know if I did actually, I didn't get any tea service actually this time, but anyway, I should have sorted that out. But then to have Liz Broderick and Dr. Anna Cody, what impressive people. Seriously, I've never been in the presence of either of them previously, and you just think, oh my gosh, these people give everything. They give everything to a really important change for all of our society. And I was absolutely humbled, I think. These are people making real change, and I just thought, wow, thank you for coming to us and spending the time with us, and again, the humility, and it wasn't, there's no showboating at your conference. That's why, you get that at a lot of conferences, this is what I've done. There's none of that, and you've got the best people in the world, and look, the work that they're doing, the champions of change, all of the research, everything that they're doing, and again, that chemistry between the pair of them. Obviously, Liz has done, been in the role for many years, and then Dr. Anna Cody's taken it on as well, but sensational, absolutely, just to see them having a genuine conversation, yeah.
I have to pinch myself sometimes when I have these ideas around, who would be ideal for this? And then they both agree. It's pretty amazing. Yeah.
Yeah, look, I don't even know how, seriously, that was, I'm trying to even remember, I've got blown away by emotion. And so that's why I enjoy being the chair, because it's well, how can I not enjoy that? Why, it's not, so that was real spectacular. In terms of takeaways, I think I was just, I've got my content here, but I think it's just the sheer persistence and what they must give to make that change happen. They're really impressive people, really, really impressive people making fundamental change for all of us. And I think I said it, but supremely grateful to both of them for the work that they do.
Yeah, definitely. And what about the conversation with David and Kanae?
Well, same again, that flow, that. Is this you who does all of this, Jason? Because, seriously, that just flowed so perfectly.
Joelle has some input, and in fact, she's the one that recommended Kanae for David. So.
Because, did you know she knew Liz Broderick?
No, I didn't, but Liz let me know before she got up, so yes.
Yes, so there you go. So, that wasn't it. Did you know Joelle? No, well, there you go. See, I know some stuff as well, because, see, I saw Liz and Kanay have a chat after, like, you know, because eyes everywhere. And I was just chatting to Kanay, and I was like, oh, they've known each other for years. And it's like, of course they do. They're so like-minded and so working in the same direction. It was like these people, like, good, like, thank you for everything that you do. But the conversation, like, we're not even got to Dr. I. David Daniels yet, but I really was impressed with Kanay. Such an incredible background, and what that helped, it was like, so they shared more of the raw experience, being people of colour, and saying, okay, so we get invited into these places from organisations that say we're doing diversity, inclusion and belonging, and then you might go there and then the systems aren't made for them. And that was one of the main takeaways from their conversation. I remember Dr. I. David Daniels, obviously, is an incredible person, saying, you can't handle my whole self. You know, you kind of get that a lot in organisations, saying, bring your whole self to work. And it's true, you know, what do we do if he brings his whole self to work? And the systems are still built by people, generally white males, like 200 years ago, and they talked about 200 years of tradition and the loyalty of dead people. So that flow from Adam Grant, that whole morning, like, it was like, oh my gosh, this is like conference gold, really, wasn't it? Because it all just built on each other. And then, so yeah, talking about embedding DEI, is it safe for everyone invited, and create the space before you invite people to show up to it. So yeah, that was like, that was especially after day two, you know, you're a bit tired when you turn up, and then for that to be the morning, incredible.
Yeah, not bad. I don't know how we're going to top it for year 3, but
I'm just going to sit back and watch.
yeah, you get to enjoy it next year without having to do the work. It's great. I've got some ideas. Yes, we're not going to have Adam Grant back, unfortunately, but we have to keep the level now, so we'll try and do that. So I guess one of the things that people crave, as you kind of mentioned earlier on in this podcast, when they come to a conference, is not just to be inspired by these amazing thought leaders who have done so much and created so much impact, but they also want practical takeaways. What can I take back to work and go, I can apply that immediately? And so we had 6 industry case studies across the 2 days, from, let me see if I can remember them all, Joe Grasso from Lyra Health, Liam Scopes from Air New Zealand, Jess Dalton from Sunrise. Then on day 2, we had Emma Harris from ATCO, we had Rowena Beale from Presbyterian Ladies College, and then we had Danielle Griffiths from APA Group. No one forgotten. And they all had, you know, different stories to tell about different aspects of deploying psychosocial risk management, including aligning HR and health and safety, you know, so that we're all kind of contributing to the outcomes that we want. Were there any, you know, you could go on probably for another hour just with takeaways from those 6 industry case studies, but maybe 3 highlights that come to mind from those.
Yeah, and I don't want to do anyone a disservice by not saying them. I did like Liam Sculp's presentation. There was one particular slide, I think I mentioned it earlier, who talked about the practical ways that psychosocial hazards have been addressed, and it was all very practical ways about changing the way that work is done. And I think until that point, people in the delegates were still thinking, well, how do you do this? That was one of the nice messages I got on LinkedIn, actually. And I think it was somebody called Aaron who came and said hi to me, but he said, thank you for helping this conference be accessible for people who are new to the field. So rather than just experts. So for me, I think Liam provides that practicality in terms of, okay, well, this is actually tangibly what we're doing. And it's like, oh, of course it is. So that was a big takeaway from me. Jess Dalton just struck me as incredibly inspiring. I'm trying to recall, like, she talked about the disconnection of the data. I can't remember the specifics, but she was talking about a safe system of work and how she's looking across all different cultures. Rowena did an incredible job too, didn't she? Like, you think she went from absolutely zero to where she is now, and you could see the savviness in her. It was like, okay, well, we don't need to talk about psychosocial. Like, she had an end goal in mind, but she didn't. There was a very savvy stakeholder management going on there, rather than going for, we need to talk about psychosocial risk and so on. You could see how she'd just done this very clever build, and one step at a time, and taken people on a journey with her to make really quite fundamental change in an education environment. And I guess that is the overriding perspective, is how people from different industries can learn from each other. You know, it's, you kind of go, you listen to each of those and you go, okay, well, look, that's an aviation person talking to someone in Sunrise, talking to someone from the education, Presbyterian Ladies College, and still you've got shared learning and understanding, which is, like you said earlier, Joelle, about that different industry, and you can kind of still keep learning no matter, So I think probably getting a bit tired now, Jason.
All right, we'll wrap it up soon, Liz. We'll wrap it up. I told you should have had a vino with you. Yeah.
Next time. It's like the end of day 2. You start to get a bit, the day 2 of the conference, like Jason was doing the panel conversation with Peter Kelly and Carlo and Mary Ann, but you get a bit delusional in your thinking. It's kind of like, you go, oh, what am I talking about? And who am I talking to now?
Even when I was moderating that discussion, I'm so glad Mary Ann stepped in a couple of times. I think she could see, like, my eyes were open, but my brain was dead. So, yeah, she stepped in a couple of times to help us out. It didn't help that Peter Kelly did not answer any one of my questions. He just talked.
Yeah, I just heard him talk about Merlot. Oh, and of course, Marianne's watery beer, that was a standard. But yeah, he was talking about Merlot and Tony Blair, and I don't know what he was going. Of course I did.
Listeners to this podcast, if you've heard Peter's episodes, you'll know that he can go on some really good segues. So, or I say good, I mean a lot of segues. They're not necessarily good.
All right, well, so what were your thoughts on adding comedy to the conference, Liz? So we had Jimmy Reese during the conference proper, and then Merrick Watts at the VIP dinner.
And myself.
Known comedian Liz Payne. How could I have forgotten?
Well, I was going to ask Jimmy for a slot on his tour, which he was telling me about. I did ask him what had happened to Giggle and Hoot. He didn't he said, oh, they're at the ABC somewhere. But that's not answering your question, Joelle. Look, I really enjoyed it. Obviously, I'm a big fan of Jimmy Reese, so I think the only thing was it was one after the other. So I think for next time it's like, okay, well, how do we do one each day? So
I think we're just going to do one. We'll take some of Rob Briner's feedback, and we won't have a comedian in the conference proper. We'll just save it for the dinner, I think.
Yeah, it was nice, because I think at dinner time, your brain's a bit fried in the best possible way. So, yeah, probably.
That was a learning from the first time we did it. We did a panel for the dinner, and everyone's brain was completely fried by the panel. So it's, good to lighten things up.
Yeah, and it's hard when you're kind of trying to quietly eat your food and all. You're choosing which knife and fork you're supposed to be using, and you...
It's a conscious choice. I know the right ones to use, but I prefer not to.
But then it's clanking away and you're going, oh, I'm really hungry. And then you're conscious that people are trying to have a conversation.
It's much easier with a comedian when everyone's having a bit of a laugh and he's quite loud versus a panel and everyone's trying to listen in intently, right?
Yeah. I think most people actually, the feedback I got was that most people enjoyed the themes that Merrick was giving in terms of stress and pressure. I didn't know, whether Rob Briner was going to challenge him on the psychology behind it at one point. But no, I think one at dinner time's a good.
Yeah, that's a lesson learned. So I'm thinking Yeah, I don't want to give too much away, but I do want to do something fun at the end of day one to send us into networking drinks, but I don't think it's a comedian. I've got some other ideas. So
Is it two truths and a lie?
no, but it is, it's not too far from what I had.
We're going to make
in
everyone
mind.
do a disc profile and stand on the world's biggest quadrant.
Liz, you'll be happy to know we're at our last two questions for the podcast, so you can get
There's
to your
a lot of questions, actually. I wasn't expecting this so much, but anyway, go on.
It's a lot to cover, right? It's a big conference. What are your hopes for the future of workplace mental health? We asked you last year. I can't remember what your response was. Do you have anything different to share or insightful?
No, yes, I do have something insightful. I actually think it has progressed a lot in the year, is what I would say. So I think last year compared to this year at the conference, I think there was a lot more general understanding, and I think things have actually progressed. Even the understanding of most people in the delegates, obviously the legislation has been a big role in that, but I think things have changed, and I think as much as it can, so that is what I do hope, is it's more integrated in the way that we do work, which is what Mary Ann Baynton was saying, rather than a standalone effort. And that's the same as what DEI should be like. It shouldn't just sit on its own with its own little team, working in isolation, trying to convince everyone that it's important. It should be like the golden thread that comes through all stages of the employee life cycle, and at every stage we're thinking, okay, well, what's the psychosocial risk impact at this stage, and so on. So that's what I think it should be. Same as DEI. I've done a fair bit of work in DEI, and often it's a couple of champions trying to fight a good cause, and really that's not effective. It should be part of the way that we do work. So did have something good to say.
Yeah. I agree, Liz. And it's kind of like Wade was talking about human rights. Like that's kind of like psychosocial safety is a subset of human rights, if you like. And that's probably what weaves it all together.
Yeah, he did say that, and I agree with that. And I think that's that shared underpinning in most people in the room, is that's why they're there, and I think that's that strong connection. I agree.
All right, last question for you today, Liz. Parting words of advice for listeners who want to work in the field of psych health and safety.
I think it's about being informed. I think there's a lot of goodwill. So I think anyone who is listening to this will be wanting to be informed, so that's a given. And I will go back to my comments on the start of day two where I talked about scaffolding. So people who are working in this industry, I could see just from those side conversations I had, they are taking on probably too much on what they should do. And I think, and Wade talked about that as well, and I think you have to purposely have that scaffolding around you at all times, and people who are working too hard and getting too emotionally involved, which is natural for the work that we do and the kind of people we are, but that is just a one-way street to burn out ourselves, and we don't want an industry of professionals who are fighting a fight and getting burnt out themselves. So that's scaffolding. And also back to Adam Grant's podcast, there is one that I really liked about learning to say no and your personal boundaries. And that is something I have learned in this last year, is to set the personal boundaries. And from a mental health point of view, that's the better way to be your best self if you actually do set your boundaries. So I think the scaffolding, the boundaries, and your own sustainability for professional is really, really important.
So insightful again. We're going to have to get you on as a speaker at PHSCON maybe in a couple of years after you have next year off.
Yeah, I'm happy to retire for the time being, but I'll still be there. I'll still be there winning some Lego, and
That was a highlight from Dunsafe, yeah. And thanks to Dunsafe and Sonder and TELUS Health in particular, who are our silver sponsors, for supporting the event, yeah.
Yeah, they were good. I gave the poor guy, it was the end of day two, and I was just not leaving without some Lego. I apologise to him if he's listening, but I think he thought I did this like positional power. Look, I'm the chair for the event. Like, give me another go.
Yeah, no, Fair call. Do you know who I am? Yeah, that works. Yeah.
It did work, and I thought, I could get used to this. But anyway.
Liz, you're an amazing human. I believe you're a free agent and taking offers at the moment, preferably for an internal role in org development, org culture, psychosocial safety.
Yeah, I think culture is, even though I think Rob Briner says, that's what he says, culture change this, culture change that. That's a LinkedIn post that does wind me up. But I think culture's my strong spot, because I think that's how you weave it. I've done it with diversity. You can do it, obviously, psychosocial hazards. But I think culture, because you've got that systems-based view, and I think that's where I am. But I won't be free for long. So
I know that. I know you'll be in demand. So I believe you're currently taking offers. So if you're looking for someone in that space, get in touch with Liz over LinkedIn and give her your very best offer, because she is very valuable. She's very insightful, and we love having her in our community. So thanks, Liz, again for being on the podcast and sharing your insights.
Oh, well, thank you. I really appreciate that. I'm getting the rosy cheeks again. So look.
See, if you had the wine, you could blame it on the wine.
I'll go and get one now. I've got to run some training in the morning, so I can't have that much.
Yeah, I could. Liz, again, thank you for that. And we're looking forward to seeing you in person while you're not working next conference. So thank you so much.
All right. Nice to see you both. Thank you.
All right, listeners, that brings us to the end of this episode. Remember, we do record these over video and put those videos on our Flourish DX YouTube channel. We also take snippets of these episodes with our guests and put them on the Flourish DX LinkedIn page. So make sure you follow along there and connect with myself, Joelle, and Liz, particularly if you're looking for an internal org culture specialist. But she's not going to be available for long, so get in touch soon. Thanks, everyone, and we'll catch you next episode.
You've been listening to the Psych Health and Safety Podcast. To stay up to date with the latest on psychological injury prevention, follow Flourish DX on LinkedIn and subscribe to the Psych Health and Safety Podcast at www.psychealthandsafety.com.